This is the lecture preparation for February 7th, 2016, the fifth Sunday in Ordinary Time. I think it's important to note that this is the last Sunday before Lent begins, and so we will be in the readings from Lent. And because there are certain rituals with RCIA, there are scrutinies, and primarily on the third, fourth, and fifth Sundays, there will be some different readings at the Mass where those rites are, but I'll keep you abreast with all of that. But anyway, this is the last Sunday before we begin Lent. So we begin with Isaiah. I'm going to read at the commentary below. It's really good. I'm on page 59 of your workbook. Last week we read about the call of the prophet Jeremiah. Today we proclaim a similar text about the call of Isaiah to his prophetic ministry. Last week's first reading that assured Jeremiah of God's support in his difficult time ministry was paired with the story of Jesus' rejection by his own townspeople. Today's text, in which Isaiah's fear and sense of unworthiness is overcome by visions of God enthroned in glory, is paired with the story of Jesus' call of the first disciples. For various reasons, true prophets are typically reluctant to embrace their call. Jeremiah thought he was too young. Isaiah believes he is unworthy. And God intervenes with a powerful vision meant to reassure Isaiah so he can respond without reservation. The experience narrated here is mystical and mysterious, the kind of unique and life-changing event most of us never experience. Yet, when we read it, we sense immediately that the Holy One, who is totally other, is also so gracious and compassionate as to enter lovingly into our lives. That's the challenge of this proclamation, to paint the terrifying yet fascinating nature of this experience of the divine. Continuing. The overwhelming aspects of the story are found in the majestic sense of God's presence filling the temple and angels singing God's praise. Earth and heaven meet when the heavenly song shakes the door frame and divine smoke fills the house. Isaiah responds in terror, as aware of his unworthiness as he is of God's glory. But God ministers to Isaiah through the angel who sears his lips with purifying fire. God's announcement to Isaiah is one we all long to hear. Your wickedness and sin are blotted out. Next page. Despite God's desire and remarkable initiative, Isaiah remains free to choose his response. God asks of him what he asks in every age of every person: whom shall I send? Isaiah's response, made possible not only by what God did, but by his courage and generosity, or perhaps made possible not only by his courage and generosity, but by what God did, rings with daring and humility. Send me. I'd like you to look up just on the upper left corner of page 60, and it says to keep in mind. And I want to read this to you also. Tell the story. This was a story. This is a story. Most of the Old Testament readings are stories, as are many of the Gospels. Make the story yours, then share it with your listeners. Use the language. Don't throw away any good words. Settings give context. Don't rush the description. Characters must be believable. Understand their motivation. Dialogue reveals character. Distinguish one character from another with your voice. And that is to be able to distinguish one voice from another in the way you proclaim is the sign that one of the signs that you're really progressing in your proclamation. You want to do the best you can. Maybe that's an area you want to work on, is to differentiate between the voices of those who are speaking, so that the words don't all sound the same. Now, going back to page 59, and on the liner notes to the left, there's a few things I want to point out. First of all, King Uzziah is the pronunciation. He reigned for 52 years. and which is a long time. So this is beginning with a context that he was an important figure to the Jews. So when he said, in the year King Uzziah died, that would have been an important, memorable time, which would have been around 740 BC. Okay, so it says seraphim were stationed above. So you have just, when you say, first of all, it's a kind of a narration. In the year King Uzziah died, you're just stating the facts. I saw the Lord. You're beginning to create this vision, heavenly vision. Make sure you do so. In general, I would really like for most of you to be more expressive, especially in your depiction of stories. If you've listened to Father John when he does his gospel reading, he's extremely animated, and I think it really helps. And I don't think you have to be quite as demonstrative in the way that Father John is, but I want you to do this and tell the story. Tell it as if you were telling it to some children even. Okay, again, going over to the liner notes, it said, convey the angel's praise with energy and awe. Just for your information, smoke is a biblical sign of God's presence. So when you say, and the house was filled with smoke, you're not, when you say that, you're not just seeing smoke, but you're seeing smoke as a representative of God's presence. Okay, then when he says, woe is me, I'm depressed, I forgot, wasn't it some cartoon or something where somebody was always going, woe is me? I don't remember who it was, but that's probably not a good translation of the original text, but that is because, as it says there to the left, because humans are unworthy to stand before God, seeing God almost certainly ensured death. So he was afraid. Then I said, woe is me, I'm doomed, because he thought he was going to die because he was seeing God. Then the next paragraph, let your tone suggest the remarkable nature of this event. That is, then one of the seraphim flew to me, and then tell this story. Okay, so the question on the next one asks, what is the tone of the angel? And you can answer that for yourself. Is it reassuring, comforting, or rousing? And how would that be? Something like this. So let's see, maybe reassuring. See, now that this has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin purged. If it was comforting, it would be pretty similar. See, now that this has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin purged. If it was rousing, it might be something like this. See, now that this has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin purged. If you can see the difference, especially between the last one and the other ones. Then you have to begin a transition from hearing the angel to hearing God's voice. So when you say the words that I just said about your wickedness is removed, that's the voice of the angel. The next one, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Whom will I go? Who will go for us? Okay, so just a note also in the second paragraph, the holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. We know that as the text, just pretty much verbatim of our Sanctus, the holy, holy, which we use at Mass. This is where it comes from. Okay, and there's some other places in the Old Testament too, but this is one of them right there. Okay. A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a high and lofty throne, with the train of his garments filling the temple. Seraphim were stationed above. Then they cried one to the other, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is filled with his glory. At the sound of that cry, the frame of the door shook, and the house was filled with smoke. Then I said, Woe is me, I am doomed, For I am a man of unclean lips, living among a people of unclean lips. Yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, holding an ember that he had taken with tongs from the altar. He touched my mouth with it and said, See, now that this has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin purged. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Here I am, I said. Send me. The word of the Lord. Moving on to the second reading. I would like for you to do the shorter version, and the reason is this. This week we have the presentation on the CDA, the diocesan request for help, and that's going to be the theme. I want to leave a little bit of extra room as far as time, and so that it doesn't bog it down. But this brings to mind a certain thing which I think we all know, but I want to remind you. So more often than not, the priest or deacon will preach primarily about the gospel reading, which is not the reading that you are preparing. That being the case, the only preaching, if you will, that anyone receives from these two readings is what you put into it, the way you proclaim it. So your proclamation is more than just saying the words. You need to understand what is all behind the words. All the information you really need is in the book. And when you understand that and proclaim it as such, the meaning of that word will be transmitted at least to a higher level than it would be otherwise. All right, to the second reading. I want to do the short version. It's not really marked in your book. I was looking at the missalette. Essentially, they're removing most of the first paragraph, and then part of the next to the last one. I'm calling it a paragraph. It's Paul. It's mostly just sentences. So it begins with brothers and sisters. Jumps down. I handed on to you of first importance. So it deletes. I am sending you all the way through, unless you believed in vain. For. Then jumping over the next page, it deletes. For I am the least of the apostles, and that goes on to not I, however, but the grace of God that is within me. So we go from He has appeared to me to therefore, whether it be I or they. So I want you to go ahead and I'd like you just to all do the short version. Okay, a couple of notes. I'm going to read to you at the bottom, the commentary. The complex man we know as Paul comes to the fore today, offering words of encouragement about what we have been taught, what we've embraced, and what has taken root in our hearts. He asserts the resurrection of Jesus and alludes to numerous post-resurrection appearances, which were all appropriate and predictable. All that is, except for the appearance to Paul himself. Paul was unique among the band of disciples. He never knew the Lord. He appropriated himself the title of apostle, and he undertook to evangelize Gentiles instead of his fellow Jews. But none of that compares to the greatest difference between Paul and his brother Christians. He had sought to destroy the faith and put Christians to death. Thus, he considers himself as born abnormally and remains keenly aware of God's mercy in his life. Paul is complex because he can assert both that he snuck in the back door and deserves a place at the table. Because abuses have crept into the lives of Corinthian converts, Paul writes to reassert the faith they had so eagerly given themselves to when he first preached it to them. So he does this in this text. What you do when you proclaim reviews the context of the faith and the solid reasons Christians have for clinging to it. Unless you embrace the faith in vain, he says, you are being saved by it even now. That is, if you haven't lost what you received. Now, this is part of the part I deleted. So I think I'm going to stop it right there. A couple of notes to the left of the second reading. Like Paul's community, yours has need of this reminder. Again, that's from the part that's deleted. So I'm going to jump down. So he's giving a review of the faith right there. When he talks about the 500 brothers, he says, most of whom are still living, although some have fallen asleep. That is meant to impress the readers. Okay, most of the other notes don't apply because we're doing the short reading. A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, I handed on to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. After that, Christ appeared to more than 500 brothers at once, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. After that, he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. Least of all, as to one born abnormally, he appeared to me. Therefore, whether it is I or they, so we preach, and so you believed. The word of the Lord. Very short. Make sure you practice that and do it well. The gospel reading. This comes after last week's, and Jesus has read in the temple. And at first they say, "Oh, you're great," and then they went, "Wait a minute, you're just the son of Joseph, and who are you to be saying all this stuff?" Then he said something that really convicted them, and they got mad and they wanted to kill him. And they were going to throw him over a cliff, but he passed through the midst of them. There's a little bit that happened between that and this week's reading. So first, then Jesus went to Capernaum. He went down to Capernaum, a town in Galilee, where he began instructing them on the Sabbath day. They were spellbound by his teaching, for his words had authority. Again, the same thing. By the way, the cover, the title, the picture, which is that you're looking at now on the computer screen, is a map of that, and in the reading it talks about Lake Gennesaret. That's actually the Sea of Galilee. It's the same body of water. It's interesting to find that. And look on there and see if you can find Capernaum and some of these other places. Okay, then he cured a demoniac, and so there were some other things going on. But then he came to the Lake of Gennesaret, or the Sea of Galilee, as it's called. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. While the crowd was pressing in on Jesus and listening to the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. He saw 2 boats there alongside the lake. The fishermen had disembarked and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, he asked him to put out a short distance from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. After he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Simon said in reply, "Master, we worked hard all night and have caught nothing, but at your command I will lower the nets." When they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets were tearing. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come to help them. They came and filled both boats so that the boats were in danger of sinking. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at the knees of Jesus and said, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For astonishment at the catch of the fish they had made seized him and all those with him, and likewise James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners of Simon. Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men." When they brought their boats to the shore, they left everything and followed him. The Gospel of the Lord. Finally, I would like you to look at the note right just to the left there, and it says to keep in mind, and it says praying the Scriptures. Make reading these Scriptures a part of your prayer life every day, and especially during the week prior to the liturgy in which you will proclaim. So I'm gonna give this challenge to all of you who are ministers of word, that during Lent, that you will increase the amount of time that you spend with the Scriptures, that you especially dwell on the Scriptures in the week when you are to read. But, you've got a great book here. Not very many people have this much background to look at when they hear the reading. So I just want to challenge you to make that perhaps one of your Lenten resolutions, that every week you are prepared for this reading. It can be as simple as even listening to this recording. So I give you that challenge, and I pray for God's blessings to all of you as you prepare for Lent.